an organizer, and may now speak to any other organizers or panelists on the line. When you are ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, welcome to our webinar today. We are going to go ahead and get started. And we are now recording. So today's webinar, we're going to talk about retail dropshipping as a strategy. So remember, if you have questions, feel free to ask those. If you're attending the live version of the webinar, if you're attending the recorded webinar, obviously you have the ability to pause, fast forward, rewind, slow me down, speed me up, and everything else, which I think will be really beneficial, because in this lesson that we're getting into today, we're going to teach you about how to do dropshipping on eBay effectively. And how this process starts. So this webinar can get a little bit technical. We're going to go through and list several items while you're watching. We're going to show you where to go in order to get dropship products. We're going to show you how to price them. We're going to show you how to get over the information like the titles, the descriptions, the prices, and everything else like that from the dropshipper sites that we're going to be using. And everything in between. So knowing that you can slow me down and speed me up by using that gear icon in the bottom right-hand corner, in particular for this lesson, is extremely useful. Now that said, the other thing that comes into play here is this is a lesson in particular where you probably don't want to sit and watch the entire thing in one sitting. It's just not going to be effective. A far better approach is you watch a minute or two of the lesson, and then you pause it and then do what's taught. And then you watch a couple more minutes and then you pause it and then do what's taught. Now, in this lesson, I'm going to have to focus on some technical stuff. So if you're super comfortable with copying and pasting and keyboard shortcuts, saving images and so on, this lesson should be very straightforward for you. In fact, for some of you, it might be too detailed. In future lessons, we're going to spend a lot more time on strategy rather than the technical stuff. But I want to make sure that all of my students are able to get on the same page and really understand this strategy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start talking about drop shipping. Now, when it comes to drop shipping, there's a few different ways that we can do this on eBay. So the first way to do drop shipping is by doing something that I would refer to as wholesale drop shipping. This is where you find a wholesale drop shipper, you get that wholesale drop shipper to agree to work with you, and then once they've agreed to work with you, you take their products and you list them on eBay at the retail prices that they tell you to list them at. And that's a fine way to get started, but it is a little bit slower. Now, the reason it's a lot slower in getting started is because you have to reach out to the supplier. They then have to agree to work with you. And sometimes the communication process back and forth can take anywhere from several days to a few weeks. Now, a great example of why we don't want to go the wholesale dropship route day one is I had a friend who got a dropshipper or contacted a dropshipper and was interested in working with them. The dropshipper said, yeah, we're interested in you. We're not taking on new dropshippers at this point, but we're hoping to in the next several days. We'll be contacting you. So rather than waiting, my friend just proceeded to continue to contact other dropshippers, and he continued to contact other dropshippers until one finally agreed to work with them. He ended up, in this case, building a website around his dropshipper's products. 9 months after the fact, the original dropshipper that he was going to work with him finally got back in touch with them and said, hey, we're ready to onboard you now. We'd be happy to sell. We'd be happy to provide you with product. But he was like, hey, that ship has sailed 9 months ago. I could have had a baby in that time just to get a supplier to agree to work with you. And so once you do get a supplier to agree to work with you, there's no guarantee that those dropship products will perform that well on the eBay system. So there's a possibility you end up contacting a wholesale dropshipper, they agree to work with you, you then put their products on eBay only to find out that they don't work so well, they don't sell at all. And then the 2 weeks or whatever time you spent getting that supplier agree to work with you ended up being a waste of time. So I'm going to propose a different method. I'm going to propose something that I would refer to as doing retail drop shipping. This is where we work in partnership with companies like Walmart or Target or Amazon in order to find items that sell well, and we sell using those retailers. And once we are able to identify which items are really moving the fastest, then at that point, we will reach out to wholesale drop shippers that can provide us with those items directly rather than having to work with any other companies as intermediaries. But because you only secure a drop shipper, a wholesale drop shipper, based on items that you already know are selling well, it means that there's no wasted time in securing those suppliers because you'll know that you'll be able to use them as you move forward. So I had a student a while back who used the retail dropship strategy. He found a particular item that was selling well that he was able to get through Costco. It was this oversized teddy bear. And this oversized teddy bear got to a point where it was selling for him 4 or 5 times a day. Now, this is an item that he previously didn't even know existed. So day one, he would have never gone out there and started contacting suppliers for oversized teddy bears. But this particular one was just one of the ones he had thrown up from the Costco site. It started to move really well. And so as a result, he ended up finding the manufacturer of that product. And after finding the manufacturer of that product, he was able to secure them by saying, hey, I've already sold your teddy bear a whole bunch of times. I would love to work with you directly. And it ended up being a really fantastic supplier relationship for him. And that's the exact same thing that we want to do here. So this is a way by which we can find items or identify items that really are selling well. And then based on that, we use that information to our advantage. So anyway, at its core, this is the fastest way to get rolling. I have students who get started doing this who are able to start seeing sales within their first few days. And then it gives you a much better idea for what's in the market. Now, there are millions and millions of products that we can do this exact strategy with. And so that's what I want to show you today is I want to start demonstrating that process, help you to kind of see the big picture and go from there. Now, there are drop shippers out there who will agree to work with you quickly. In fact, eBay has a whole list of drop shippers that they love to work with and that they would propose that you work with them as well. There's a caveat though, and that is that these drop shippers don't tend to actually work that well and don't actually tend to be that profitable of drop shippers. Okay, so I've gone ahead and opened up a new tab, and I'm going to open up this list of eBay's pre-approved drop shippers, and you're going to notice a few things once we pull up this list. All right, so here it is. And so this is their list of pre-approved drop shippers, but I wouldn't ever bother going to eBay's solution directory because these really aren't solutions. So what these companies all are, or at least for the most part, is these are suppliers that charge some kind of a monthly or annual fee for the privilege of working with them and being able to sell their products. Now, ironically, a lot of their products in their directories sell at a higher price than what you could get from, say, a Walmart or a Target. So their wholesale dropship prices are actually higher than that of actual retailers, which kind of makes it absurd to think about using them. But the reason they're in this solutions directory is because these guys pay money to eBay for the privilege of being listed on the eBay site as one of their solutions, right? So here we have SaleWho wholesale directory. And drop shippers who charge us to work with them, I mean, that's not terrible, but that said, I'm not a huge fan of suppliers who charge you money to work with them just because they're buttering both sides of the bread. They're trying to make money off of you as a membership, and they're trying to make money off of items that are sold. When you're working with the drop shipper, you want the drop shipper to only make money when you do, because then they're incentivized to help you to generate as many sales as humanly possible. And that puts us in a far better situation. So this one, SaleWho, I'm trying to remember what their price is. I keep clicking this go to solution button, but apparently it's broken. So just type in SaleWho.com. And you're welcome to look at this list and get any of these suppliers who agree to work with you. It's just we won't be using them because their items don't tend to be that great. And that's what we want to stay away from. So let's take a look at SaleWho. Okay, so SaleWho, 1 year access. You pay them $67, but you're a lot less likely to sell these items than if you were getting them through any other kind of means. All right, so let's talk about the strategy and why it works, and more importantly, how it works. So again, finding wholesale drop shippers, real wholesale drop shippers that don't charge you any kind of a monthly or annual fee and only make money when you do, they're good, but a lot of times they lack the systems. Like you could jump into SaleWho, pay them the $67 and have access to their products right now, but the products just aren't going to sell well, and so it's a waste of time. So we don't want to use any or pretty much any of the suppliers that are found in eBay's solution directory. Real wholesalers oftentimes don't have the same systems in place, so you go and you try to create an account with them, and it's not something that's fully systematized. Maybe they agree to work with you, but they can't provide you with the wholesale price list for 2.5 weeks because the guy who is responsible for that's out of town. He's on a buying trip in Malaysia. Who knows? But again, the name of the game here is we want to produce an income as quickly as possible. So we want to remove as many barriers between you and having products live on eBay as humanly possible. So in the name of achieving that, that's what we're doing here today. So additionally, when you contact these wholesale dropshippers, they're going to want business documentation. They may want an EIN, they may want a state issue tax ID number, they may want a resale certificate. And depending on the state or the province that you're in or wherever you're located, it may take your local government several weeks or even months potentially to get that information to you. So as much as you might want to work with that wholesale dropshipper, it just may not be in the cards at this point. And so anyway, that with the delays in communications can really drag out the process. Now, talking about retail dropshipping. So the idea here is that there are many marketplaces out there that we can do sales through. We can take any item, put it on eBay, and the market will tell us if the item can sell at that price point. So all we're doing is taking something that's listed on the Walmart site, for example, at say $100, and we're marking it up to say $140 to see if the market will bear that price on eBay. And our customers are going to be the ones that are going to tell us which items actually work the best. So when we're doing drop shipping, we're not going to buy these items in advance. We're working in partnership with the supplier directly, and every time an item sells, they're going to package and ship the item directly to your customer for you. So when a customer buys, the money goes into your PayPal account, and then from there, we use the funds inside of PayPal in order to make the purchase on the Walmart site, and we are going to put in the customer's address as the shipping address, and you'd put in your own address as the billing address. Now, a lot of times when you use a strategy like this, items are not going to come from Walmart in a branded box because the item doesn't actually come from Walmart, interestingly. A lot of times, Walmart doesn't really want to house inventory any more than you do. And so as a result, a lot of times they're contracted out with the manufacturer, and the manufacturer has committed to ship the items directly to their customers so that Walmart doesn't have to have their employees doing the package and shipping or anything else. And so for that reason, a lot of times, even though somebody bought something off the Walmart site, it doesn't come with a Walmart box. It doesn't come with a Walmart packing slip in it. And so that makes it a lot simpler. Now, you can also request on a lot of retailer sites, you can request that no pricing information be included on the packing slip. Like, for example, if you're using Amazon as a supplier, they have a gift option. And when you tick that gift option, then Amazon will strip any pricing information on the packing slip, and the customer will just see the item that they ordered on the packing slip, and that's about it. So for now, we're just going to use one supplier day one. We're going to find items that are selling well using Walmart, and then we're going to transition into wholesale dropship relationships with suppliers of those individual items. And we're using these items from, say, Walmart or Amazon as a barometer to see which items can really support those higher price points that would give us the profitability that we're shooting for. Now, that said, a lot of you might be saying at this point, well, if they could get it for cheaper on the Walmart site, why in the world would they buy it from me on eBay? And the simple reality is that people are creatures of habit. So when a user wants an item, let's say that they want an overstuffed teddy bear, they go to their favorite marketplace, they type in a keyword phrase and hit search, and then they start browsing through results. Once they find an item that they like, so let's say, for example, a user stumbles into this item right here. They go, oh, look, this item is $44. It's a giant teddy bear. It looks to be what I want it to be. The user then clicks into it, and then they buy the item because it's what they want at a price that they perceive as being a fair price. And it's as simple as that. Now, there are bargain shoppers out there. These bargain shoppers are people that will never pay a penny more than they have to. So if they have to spend an extra 30 minutes in order to save an extra 50 cents, they will do it. And this customer base is the absolute least valuable customer to go after, because these are customers that thrive off of businesses going under. Because if there's one seller of a given item that's going out of business and they're just doing a liquidation sale just to unload the last bit of their inventory, that 30% is going to buy from those people. And so they never help businesses to succeed. They just help businesses that are failing to just get rid of the last bit of their inventory. So if you are a shopper like that, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. You're welcome to find your items as cheaply as possible. All we're trying to do is we're trying to go after the people that are making value-based decisions. People that say, oh, here's a teddy bear, and hey, it's $44.49. That seems like a fair price. I'm going to go ahead and buy it. Now, the lower on the price spectrum you are, the more people will make impulse buys without doing a ton of research beforehand. And so what that means is, if you were selling a bunch of items that are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, sure, using the strategy, you'll see items that will sell, but you'll see that they sell at a far lower rate because people will want to cross-check and check and check and check and see where else they can find it for cheaper. And what that leads to most of the time is that you're not going to get a sale. So the question, though, is, do you need to have the cheapest price in order to make sales online? And the answer is absolutely not. I can honestly say I have literally never had the cheapest product price on any given item ever, and it's never prevented me from getting sales, because every time we create a listing like this, every time we put up the title and the description and the images and everything else, a certain percentage of people will see this. And so this is going to be very much a volume strategy. I'm going to show you how to get to a point where we have hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of items listed. Now, in order to do this, we need to automate a fair bit of the process. We're going to need to automate the listing process. We're going to need to automate the price tracking process, and we're going to need to automate the order processing process, because we don't want you doing any of those actions manually, permanently moving forward, because it just is going to get in the way of scalability. We want to be able to get to a point where in a couple of hours a day, we can have an eBay account with 40,000 items and being able to manage it at scale. And so we're going to introduce you to tools that are going to enable this all the way along. All right, so let me give you a specific example of a student who did this. So I had a student not too long ago. No, I guess it has been a little while. This is probably 2.5 years ago. But this student, and I like using this as an example because she was a perfect example of somebody that was not super technically savvy. In the first set of assignments, she got to a point where she was able to create a new eBay listing about once per hour, which in the grand scheme of things is pretty slow after you've done several listings. Now, that's a starting point. She eventually got faster. She got to a point where she could create a new listing in like 2 to 4 minutes. But everybody starts at a different place. And if you've already got the technical skills in place, you're going to go faster naturally than somebody who's just learning how to copy and paste and is learning how to use an address bar or whatever the case might be. But let's jump into the Walmart site and I'll start showing you around what she did. So the item in question was a duffel bag. So let's go ahead and search duffel bags. Now, the duffel bag that she pulled is not any of the ones that's listed here. In fact, it wasn't even an item from Walmart. And the reason I'm telling you this is because as a coach, you need to be able to trust what your coach is giving you, and you need to be able to trust telling your coach about your business. And if your coach is going to go out there and tell the entire world which are your items that are selling the absolute best to the rest of their students, that's deeply problematic. So policy-wide, we never disclose an item that's doing really well for any given student because it's detrimental to that student's success. So all these are examples. So what I'm trying to get at here is, please don't just go list a whole bunch of duffel bags thinking that you're going to get the same results by listing duffel bags, because here's the thing. You could have 2 duffel bags, this one and maybe this one, and maybe this one sells like crazy and this one doesn't sell at all. And so it's not so much the category of products that's going to dictate what items perform well. It's going to be the individual product. Now, trust me when I say this is a very non-analytical way in order to get items out there on eBay in order to start seeing sales coming in. There is a more analytical method that I tend to teach students around the 4th set of eBay assignments that I provide. And the reason I don't teach you that strategy right now is because I found as a whole students were really getting bogged down and it was slowing them down a ton to go through the analytical process of selecting items that had a higher probability of selling. This approach that we're taking, what I would refer to as a shotgun approach, we're going to put a bunch of items out there and then we're going to let the market tell us what's capable of selling at those higher price points. And then later on, I'm going to show you how to find other successful sellers who are already doing what we're talking about here, how to see which of their items are their best selling items, and then how to use that information to your advantage. But we've got to crawl before we can walk. We got to learn the basic concepts of the strategy, and we'll get into those more advanced strategies once you've gotten to a point where you can knock out a listing in about 2 to 3 minutes. So most students, we're talking about north of 50 items on eBay before we're to that point, because as they say, repetition is the master of skill, and that very much is the case. All right, so I'm looking at duffel bags. Another tool that I'm going to open up is on the eMentor tool site. I'm going to open up the eBay calculator so that we can figure out profit margins on this duffel bag example that I'm going to use here. All right, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to eBay tools, then I'm going to go down to calculators, and then I'm just going to click on this one called dropship calculator, and that should be great for what we're doing. Okay, so here's the eBay fees calculator, and this is where we're going to put in some data points. So in her case, it was a duffel bag that wasn't dissimilar from this one. So let's click on this and use it as an example. Now, at the time, the price on the duffel bag was about $32. Right now, it's $18.88. Prices fluctuate, but at the time, the retailer's price was about $32. So when she listed it for the very first time, she took the item off of the retailer site at $32. She marked it up a little bit. She started selling it at around the $45 price range. And because the item at the time was free shipping, so there wasn't any other expense added to it. But even if they had, let's say hypothetically that she had gotten the item for $35, which is the free shipping threshold on the Walmart site as it is right now. Now, by the time you watch this training, things may have changed. Walmart bounces back and forth between doing free shipping on $35 and above and $50 and above. I think they're still trying to figure out what the ideal price point is for them. But let's say that she was getting it for $35 and that she was selling it for $45. Now, along with this very first item that she listed, she also listed about 9 other dropship items, and she reported back to me after she was done with all 10 that on average it was taking her about an hour per listing, right? And again, that is a ton of time on a listing. It's not out of the norm for one of your very first listings, and that's an okay. If you fall in on an hour or an hour and a half per listing on your first listing, that's just fine. That's not a problem at all. You'll get faster at it as you continue to repeat these processes and as you start to implement the additional strategies we're going to teach you. So anyway, getting back into it, she listed those 10 items, and within about a day, day and a half, her first duffel bag sold. Now, all told, she only made about 39 cents on the item using this example. Now, there are a few additional variables that come into play, such as what your tax rate is. And so in this instance, she was paying something like $3.50 on tax on the transaction, because when you buy the item from the Walmart site, they're going to charge you sales tax. Now, this eBay calculator, and you'll see that as you hover over this, there's little descriptions on this. So tax is based on the customer shipping location. So what that means is that if an item ships to New York, then when you purchase the item from the Walmart site, it's going to automatically charge you the New York State sales tax rate. And the reason that this is the case is because Walmart is obligated to charge sales tax on any state in which they have a physical presence. So if there are Walmarts in New York, then Walmart has to charge Walmart or New York sales tax because they have physical locations there. And so in reality, if this item were to ship to, say, a Montana, you wouldn't pay that $3.50 in sales tax. Instead, you would pay the Montana sales tax rate, which is $0, because they don't have sales tax. And so you would save, basically that $3 that would have gone to fees is going to go to your profit. So instead of making 39 cents on the transaction, you're going to make, say, closer to $4. All right, so the first time she sold it, she made 39 cents. Now, do the math on that. She spent 10 hours to make 39 cents. She's making like 4 cents an hour. So you might be inclined to say, well, what a waste of time. How in the world am I going to make money if I'm only going to make 39 cents per transaction? Now, if I'm honest, I probably would have told her to price the item a little bit higher to begin with. I might have said, hey, why don't you price the item at $48 so that she'd make $3 to $5 on the transaction minimum, right? She didn't. She was priced a little bit on the low side, but nonetheless, the bag, of course, sold, and she netted a very, very small profit. Now, when she went in to fulfill on the order, once you get used to it, the fulfillment process only takes about 2 minutes, and then it takes about 10 seconds to relist an item so that the duffel bag is live again. So what I advised this student to do is after she sold it for the first time, she was saying, well, Davin, I could make more money working in a sweatshop than what I just made on that last transaction. And I completely agreed with her, right? That, again, that's pennies per hour. That's not a meaningful amount of income. So when she relisted it, I said, hey, bump it up $3 to $5 and you'll make more money on the sale. Now, what's cool is when you raise your price on an item, if the market will support a $45 price point, there's a good chance that the market will support a $48 price point, or maybe a $50 price point, or a $55. And what you do is you basically continue to ratchet up the price until you find the optimal rate at which that item sells. So the first time she sold it, she made almost nothing. The second time she sold it, she did bump it to $48. And so she made about $3, right? Again, there's variables in here. If it goes to California, the California state sales tax rate is around 10%. And so as we're doing the strategy, we want to try to assume that every sale is going to go to California. It's going to be charged the sales tax rate of California, that 10%, because that way, if it goes to any other state, you're just going to make more money per sale. But if you price your items so that you're profitable based on California transactions, then you'll be set when it ships to Utah, where the state tax rate is only 6%. So once she raised the price to 48, she sold it again. And so she raised the price again. This time she bumped it up a full $5. She bumped it up to 53. And now she's making $7.36 per sale, according to this calculator and in this example. It sold at the 53 price point. So she bumped it again. She bumped it to, say, 56. And it sold again. Ultimately, she got to a point where kind of the market capped out at around the $65 price point. And so she was making $17 per sell, but she figured out that if she dropped her price down to about $62, that's where the item sold the most aggressively. So she saw that when she increased it to 65, she was still seeing sales, but they weren't selling nearly as often. So after all that was said, she was making basically an average of $15 per sale on that exact item. And each time she relists the item, it's just a few seconds. And each time she has to fulfill on the order, it's only about 2 minutes. Now, once we get to a point where we teach you about order processing automation, it goes from 2 minutes down to 0 minutes. And so that's where the power of this strategy really comes into play, because you're not spending time day to day managing your listings. Yeah, you will manage them manually until you got a couple of hundred out there. But once we get beyond that, we'll start to incorporate those automation tools, and we're really going to start to step up the process. So over the course of about a 90-day period, this student of mine sold this exact same duffel bag just over 200 times. So 200 times in 90 days with an average profit of $15 per sell. And it starts to add up to being a fairly meaningful number. So she made just over $3,000 on that one item during that time period. So what's really cool about this is that's just one item. Now, not every one of your items is going to sell that aggressively. There's definitely what I would refer to as an 80-20 rule here, where 20% of your items are going to sell or are going to be responsible for 80% of your sales, and then 80% of your items are going to be responsible for 20% of your sales. But it doesn't take a lot of items like this to get you to a point where you're really making a substantial income, and it's all just about increasing your prices little by little to find out what the market will bear on those items, find the optimal selling price, and then continue to sell that item. And an item like this can sell for 90 days. It could sell for months beyond that and years. And I'm not sure if this student is still selling the same duffel bag again and again. I'm not keeping track of her eBay account currently, but I know that beyond the first 90 days, she was continuing to sell it. And that wasn't the end of it. That was just the last time I knew what the numbers were on that particular item. And so, yeah, if you could get 10, 15, 20 items that are performing at the same kind of a level, even if you're only making 15, 20 bucks per sell, just remember almost every single price increase you do is going to significantly increase your profitability, because almost all of the increased price goes to your profit, because there's a few expenses in here that are more or less fixed. So your cost on the item from the Walmart site is a fixed cost. And then your eBay and PayPal fees are 13.2% of the total sales volume. 10% for eBay fees that get charged to you at the end of the month on any items that have sold, and then 2.9% plus 30 cents for PayPal fees, which are assessed at the moment of the transaction. So if you sold an item today for $100, eBay would bill you at the end of the month for 10, and PayPal during the transaction would take $3.20 off of the top of the transaction. And so that's where those expenses come from for the eBay fees and PayPal fees. And if you hover over the PayPal fees box or the eBay fees box, it will give you that information. And again, this is a probable maximum tax. So sometimes when my student sold this item, she actually made $18.70 rather than $15.20. But again, it's pretty cool where you can increase the price by $3 and increase your profitability by almost $3 as well. So if we change this from 62 to say 65 again, you're looking at making $17.81. But it's all about finding that optimal price point. So this strategy can be incredibly powerful because there's nothing standing in your way between you and getting hundreds or even thousands of items out there on eBay. Just with a little bit of repetition, a little bit of practice, and then later on with some of those automation tools, this is where it becomes a very meaningful amount of income. But what's the best part about this is that you don't have to build a website and get it ranked in Google before you can see sales. All you have to do is just get a few products out there, and there's a decent chance not every one of the items you'll list will sell. That's just a simple reality of the strategy. But a percentage of those items will sell. And even if you only have one item out of 10 that starts to perform and starts to sell with any kind of consistency, then you'll be all right. All you have to do is just get to a point as quickly as possible where you have a far larger inventory in place. Now, that said, you don't need to have 50,000 items on eBay in order to become successful with this strategy. But if you can manageably take care of 200 or 300 items and make a bit of an income, and you can multiply that by 100-fold, then you're going to multiply your sales by 100-fold as well, and that's where financial independence comes from. All right, so now that you kind of understand the core strategy, again, for our customer base on eBay, just keep in mind our customers are not omniscient. They're not always willing to put in the extra 5 minutes in order to shop around and find the item at a potentially cheaper price. And so we are really benefiting from those convenient shoppers who are focused on instant gratification, because that's a big part of what our society is right now, is instant gratification. Right now, a big strategy is people will run Facebook ads for items from AliExpress at a dramatically increased price, and they'll just run paid ads through Facebook. And those items could be easily obtained for just a couple of bucks. But they're marked up substantially because people see them and they make a value-based decision. Those are items that can sell. Now, I would not recommend anyone do that strategy, and we can talk about that at a later point. But this is a really, really simple way with very few moving parts that will help you to get to a point where you're seeing sales. So, all right, let's talk about moving forward with this. All right, so we've demonstrated the eBay fees calculator. Get in here, become familiar with this. I've also created an eBay price guide. If you come here to eBay tools, you go to calculator, and then you go down here to price guide. This is basically an Excel table, and I'll show you how to read this because you want to have a little bit of flexibility on your price. So if you had an item that was coming from Walmart and it was $100, you want to mark up that item somewhere between 1.3 and 1.5. So a 1.3 markup turns a $100 price point to $130. A 1.5 markup turns it into $150. And the markup that I think is most ideal, I mean, you'll get a few more sales if you go after the 1.3 markup. The only problem is that you don't have much profit left over on the transaction, because remember, you've got expenses. You've got the cost of the item, you've got tax, you've got potentially shipping on the item. And so that all eats into your profit, those eBay fees, those PayPal fees, and everything else. So on a $100 item, if you marked it up to $130, you'd only make $2.93. And so if you were to increase the price to a 1.5 markup, you'd make $20. So I think a good sweet spot is about the 1.4 price point. So on a 1.4 markup, you'd make something like 13, 14 bucks on the transaction. And it makes the pricing super easy because if it's an item that's $50, a 1.4 markup means you're going to mark it up to about 75. Or I guess that would be closer to a 1.5 markup. My apologies. But on a $100 item, you're going at a $140 price point. So I guess it'd be $70 if it was an item that was originally $50 from Walmart. On a $200 item, you'd mark it up to $280. And so it's easy enough to remember. And you can use this eBay price guide here. You can even print this out if you want to, so that you can have that guide in front of you so that you can speedily create listings. If you just come here and click on this print icon, you can print it out and use it on your computer, or you can just keep this page open and, or you could write this down. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but just price your items appropriately, because the last thing we want to have happen is that you go and price an item and you forget to calculate an eBay fees or PayPal fees and you end up losing money on the sell. That's not ideal for anybody. All right, so let's go ahead and take you to the next level. Let's go ahead and show you. Now that we know about pricing, we're going to start the listing process. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Walmart site. So I'm going to go to walmart.com, and we need to find items that would be good contenders. Now, we want items that are quality. We want items that are actually sold by Walmart. And there's a few other factors that come into play here. Now, the Walmart website changes from time to time. So if when you get on the Walmart site, it looks a little bit different from what you're seeing here, don't stress too much about it. It hasn't changed functionally too much in quite some time, but they will do little aesthetic changes that make it work a little differently. So over here on the left-hand side, there's a little menu. If you click on that little menu icon, a menu slides out from the side, and you're going to see the Savings Center. Now, if we're going to start anywhere, we may as well start off with items that are discounted, so that way when we list the items, we've got a little bit more of a profit margin to work with. Now, that said, we don't need to list these items for less than the retail price on eBay. We can go above that retail price. Keep in mind, your customer is not going to know what the retail price is on an item unless you tell them, or unless they do a whole bunch of research. Now, if they've done a whole bunch of research and they've already found it on Walmart or they've already found it on Target, then the jig is up. They already know that they could get it cheaper, and they're not going to buy from you anyway. Now, that said, if a customer is willing to put in that time and effort to find the item cheaper from somewhere else, then they deserve to get that lower price. All we're going after here right now are the value-based shoppers, the ones that look at an item and look at a price and say, oh, that's fair, and then make their purchase decisions. Based on that, we are not looking for the price comparison shoppers. We're not looking for the bargain shoppers. If we go after that crowd, we're just going to kill ourselves and put ourselves out of business, and it's just not necessary to have the lowest price on an item in order to see sales. Now, I'm saying that. You may not believe me, but seeing is believing. So if you can utilize these strategies I'm teaching you, you'll see for yourself that you'll see sales and people are willing to pay a higher price point. But let's just look at the Savings Center. So I'm just going to come here. The little menu is going to slide out, and then I'm going to click on Savings Center, or I could click on Big Savings. They're both going to take me pretty much to the same place. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to start filtering stuff out. Now, the items that we don't want to do clearance items. So on the left-hand navigation here, you get a few different options where you can toggle the different types of discounts on or off. And the reason we don't want to do clearance is because when an item goes out of stock that was clearanced, it's gone. So if an item goes out of stock, there was a clearance item and you just sold it on eBay, there may not be anywhere that you can use to fulfill on it. What's nice about using the other kinds of items is that if Walmart's out of stock on it, there's a good chance Amazon will be in stock on it, or another retailer will be. So let's see. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start setting filters based on this. So we don't want to do clearance. We do want to do rollback. We do want to do special buys. We also want to do this one for reduced price. I wouldn't recommend we do items that are only at Walmart. Now, the reason for this is, again, it's the same issue where if Walmart's the only retailer selling the item and they're out of stock and a customer buys it from us on eBay, then we're going to be stuck and we're going to have to cancel the customer's order. So I don't like to go after items that are only at Walmart because it dramatically limits what we can do with it. Now, in this section right here, you will see that it says retailers, and there's an option in here that says Walmart. Now, the reason for this is because Walmart works in partnership with a bunch of other retailers, and basically uses a Walmart site as a marketplace. The reason for this is because Amazon is competing aggressively with Walmart, and Walmart's trying to keep up with Amazon. The only issue is that Amazon has now just over 500 million products on their website, and Walmart has tens of millions, but they don't even come close to competing on their own with Amazon in terms of inventory. And so what Walmart did is they started to contact other retailers like Overstock, Hayneedle, Izzy and Nima's shop, and started to allow them to list their items on the Walmart site. Now, the problem with these items is that because they are not Walmart items, they don't apply to the Walmart shipping and returns policy and free shipping policies and so on. And so when it comes to fulfillment, if you find out, oh shoot, this item that I'm getting from Hayneedle turns out it has a $75 shipping fee, even though it's above $50, then that's going to be problematic for your for being able to fulfill on those orders. So the one thing I see students get confused on is that they will accidentally tick the only a Walmart box. We don't want to do that, but we do want to tick the box under where it says retailer, walmart.com, and then you'll leave all of the rest of these in this section alone. You're not going to check any of the other ones in that box. Next, we do want to have a price point, and we get a series of check boxes on this page. My recommendation is you just put $35 because right now at this moment, Walmart does free shipping on items over $35. So if we set our minimum price at $35, that means that any item we choose will have free shipping, which will make it a lot easier to calculate our profitability and make sure that we don't make errors where we're losing money on transactions. So if you just put $35 in that first box, and then you could put a giant max number in the other box, like 5,000, and hit go, it's going to bring up any products that meet that criteria. Now, I want you to notice up here at the top that it says that there are 1 through 40 of 1,000 items. Now, this is deceptive because there are actually many thousands of items more than what Walmart is saying here. It's just their API limits display to up to 1,000 results. And so I'm going to show you how you can tweak that to get access to more items. But once you set your price at between $35,000 and $5,000, we don't care what brand we go after, none of that matters, but we do want items that aren't garbage. So I would recommend you select this option that's 3 stars and above. And when you tick that box that says 3 stars, it's automatically also going to select anything that's 4 stars and above, because the logic here is if somebody is okay with 3 stars and above, they're most certainly going to be okay with 4 stars and above. And so you just have to remember to tick all these options. Where the pain comes in is if you accidentally didn't check the box that says walmart.com under retailer and you end up listing an item from Overstock that has completely different shipping and return policies that come back to bite you in the butt. And then you also, in here where it says shipping and pickup, you want to make sure you have the option selected that is shipped to home, because Walmart has a slew of items that can be purchased online but can only be picked up in local stores. And so if they can only be picked up locally, that would mean you'd have to go into a local Walmart, buy the item, and then ship it to wherever the customer is located, and that's deeply problematic. The other option would be that you could give the customer instructions to go to Walmart and pick it up. That's going to be a problem because they're going to ask, why am I going to Walmart to pick this thing up? So we're working in partnership with Walmart in order to help liquidate these items, and that's what it boils down to. Now, some of you may be asking at this point, well, Davin, is this illegal? Is this ethical? Is this something that we can really do? And to answer the question, is it illegal? Absolutely, it's not illegal. Because if we take, for example, this Spalding basketball stand, we list it on eBay. Let's say we list it for $280. Somebody feels like that's a fair price. They end up buying it from us. We're helping both Spalding to get a sell, and we're helping Walmart to get a sell. Now, if I were to take this image, the description from this item, the title, and everything else, and then I were to use that to sell my very own basketball stand that I had manufactured, that would be deeply unethical. That would be illegal. That would be copyright infringement. All we're doing with this is we're listing these items and we're accurately portraying them. And so we can use the images, we can use the descriptions, we can use everything from that listing because that's the exact item that we're putting out there. Now, in terms of ethics, if a customer is comfortable with the price that we're charging, then they're going to buy the item from us. If they're not comfortable with the price that we're charging, they're going to buy from somewhere else. And it's as simple as that. We're not going to try to conceal any information about the product We're just going to put it out there and let the users who want to make that value-based proposition as to whether or not the item is worth the price that we're asking for, and nobody is going to make these people buy these items. Now, that said, if this Spalding basketball standard ends up selling really well for us, we sell it 3, 4, 5 times, then we're going to work on finding a wholesale drop shipper that can provide us with potentially a better price on the item, but a more solid relationship in terms of what the stock levels are and things like that. And so this is a means to an end. This is a short-term solution for identifying winners so that we can know which wholesale drop shippers to reach out to. And it just helps us to get to a point where we're seeing sales and profit coming in an awful lot faster. So this is not the end-all be-all strategy. You're not going to use Walmart and Amazon forevermore. You might use them as a combination of your strategy to be constantly finding new items that are working well, but it's not the long-term thing we want to focus on. Now, I just went through and selected a whole bunch of these different options. On the eMentor Tools site, if you go to eBay Tools, and then you go down to this link right here, Walmart Quick Link. Now, keep in mind, there's 2 links in here that say Walmart Quick Link. There's a Walmart Quick Link and then the Walmart List Quick Link. We're going to be using that in a later lesson for price tracking. But for right now, the one that we want to click on is Walmart Quick Link. And when we click on this, what it's going to do is it's going to take us to a pre-filtered set of Walmart search results that already has ship to home selected, rollback, special buy, reduced price, new, all lumped in there. Retailer, Walmart.com, price 50 to 500. And then once you've clicked on that link, you can come back and use it. You can come back and modify what your criteria is, because I don't think you need to do it exactly like what I'm showing. Just make sure you got the one selected that we've talked about. Make sure that you absolutely have ship to home selected. Make sure you absolutely have the retailer of Walmart.com selected, and make sure that you're doing at least enough to get free shipping. Now, you'll notice that when we click on this, it still brings us to a page that has about 1,000 results. That's not quite enough. 1,000 results doesn't do what we need it to do. We want to have a lot more breadth than that. And so again, Walmart's API is limiting only 1,000 products to being visible. So the easiest way to get around this is you just start choosing different price ranges. So instead of saying 50 to 5,000, well, we know that we're going to get shipping for free over $35. So if we put the minimum price of $35 in there, and then we put in a price of $40, and hit go, it's going to bring up only items that are in that price range for what we've specified. Now, you'll notice that it still says 1,000 plus products in that search query. And so what we want is we want something less than 1,000, because we want to be sure that what we're seeing is the full list of Walmart has to offer. So instead of doing 35 to 40, let's try doing 35 to 39. And we'll hit go, and we'll see if it gives us less than 1,000 this time. Okay, there we go. So by limiting it to that $4 range of $35 to $39, we have 871 products that we can choose from. So what you can do is you could bounce around and you can list a few items from this price point and then come back and list items from another price point. I'm going to show you how to keep track of these items as we move forward, but whatever price point you choose, just keep in mind what you chose, and then just come back and change it, because we do want to get a few different price points in there. We don't want to list all of our items in the 35 to 39 range, but we could say, hey, you know what? We've exhausted this $4 price range, so now we're going to look at items that are only, let's say, $44 to, we'll do another $4 price range. So we'll put in the first box, or let's put in the second box, $48, and then in the first one, we'll put in $44, hit go, and then we see 691 products right there. So all in all, there are probably 20,000 plus products that we could list from Walmart that meet all the criteria that we specified, that are at least 3 stars and above. We don't want to do the 1 and 2 star items just because they're going to have a little bit higher return rate. And so we want to try to minimize that. We want to try to make this as automatable as possible. And so that's how we select those items. Now, once you have identified some items that you want to list, then we start listing. Now, at this point, you might say, okay, how do we research these items to determine what we're going to list? And the answer is we're not going to research them, because I have found that every form of research a student comes up on their own to evaluate which Walmart items are going to do well and which ones are going to do poorly doesn't work. I've seen many, many times a student will take what should be a 10-second process for selecting an item. They turn it into a 20-minute ordeal, and basically all it does is it just makes them take hours and hours and hours to finish their first listings. Now, the assignment that I would have you do, if you're one of my students, after watching this lesson, I would want you to list 5 items following what I'm going to teach in this training, and then notifying me if, if you're my student, I would want to review those 5 listings, make sure that they look good. And then from there, the next set of assignments is where we're going to start talking about cutting down on cross promotions. We're going to start talking about keeping track of these items' prices so that you can know in advance when an item changes in price or it goes out of stock. But right now, I want you to imagine that we're making a cake, we're gathering ingredients, we're adding the flour, we're adding the sugar, we're adding the eggs. And there's 4 major sets of eBay assignments in which we focus on the strategy. This lesson is found in the second set of eBay assignments, and students usually don't see consistent sales until they are somewhere in the middle of about the 4th set of assignments. So execute well on what we're teaching, but just know that the items that we're going to go out there and list, for these first 5 that you're going to do, I want you to put exactly 0 effort into selecting them. Just come to a search page like this, close your eyes and point at the screen, and whichever item you point at, let's say it's this microwave, I want you to go ahead and list that microwave. If you're putting any more thought into it than that, you are way overthinking the strategy and you're making it harder for yourself. And again, I'm only drumming this heavily because I find so many students struggle so much with trying to make this more complicated than it needs to be, because too many times students have said, wait, all I have to do is I list these items from Walmart on eBay, following the guides that you've given me, and I'll see sales. And I say, yeah, absolutely. And they don't want to believe it. And, they'll come back a few weeks later once they are seeing consistent sales, once they are somewhere in that 4th set of assignments, and they'll say, I can't believe that you were right, but you were. And I just want to make this as simple for everybody as humanly possible. All right. So let's go through this process. Let's pretend like the very first item we want to list is this Stanley FatMax 700 peak battery amp battery pack. I'm going to show you how you would list this item. Now, in order to make this process more efficient, I'm going to open up a new tab and I'm going to go to eBay. Now, I've got a bunch of tabs open here along the top, but here's my eBay listing, or here's my eBay window, I should say. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start listing items. So I'm going to hit sell. And I'm going to show you how to get these items efficiently listed from the Walmart site onto eBay. I'm going to use Walmart initially. If your coach says use Amazon first, then do what your coach says. I like using Walmart because our items tend to do a little bit better as a whole than just random random Amazon items. Because again, Amazon has 500 million products, and so their items aren't really curated. Whereas because Walmart stocks a lot of their inventory, it means that they're a little bit pickier about what they're willing to purchase in volume. And so as a whole, their items tend to do a little bit better than items that don't come from Walmart. So that's why I think Walmart's a great place to start, but we'll branch out to other retailers. We'll branch out to other drop shippers as we move forward as well. All right, so now that we have clicked the sell link, now we're going to go ahead and create a listing. Now, the creating a listing process is going to be very similar to what we did with the very first listing and doing a practice item from home. And so when you get to this page where it says, tell us what you're selling, look for a link in the upper right-hand corner that says switch to business tool or switch to advanced tool, and make sure that you are using the advanced tool so that what we show you in this lesson will look like what we're demonstrating. If you end up using the quick listing tool that eBay gives to newbie sellers, then your listing is going to look completely different from mine, and it's just going to be a confusing process because all the options are going to be different. So make sure that you're in the advanced tool or the business tool. Again, there's usually a link in the upper right-hand corner if you're not already in the business tool. Now, the next thing we need to do is get these windows side by side. So I've got a tab here with eBay in it, and then I've got a tab here right there with my product in it. And so what I want to have is I want to have both of these windows open side by side. Now I've got a whole lesson that's going to teach you how to do split windows. So I'm going to show you how to split your windows for anybody that doesn't know how to do this yet. But if you find that splitting your windows is just too much for you, it's too technical and it's too difficult, I've got a dedicated training on this subject where I go into a lot more detail on how to split these windows and how to make this process as easy as possible. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it on this lesson because I realize that many of you that are watching this don't need that extra help. So as the quick demonstration, first we need to make this window occupy less than 100% of my screen. So if you look up here in the upper right-hand corner of a Windows machine, you'll see the option where you can restore down. That's this middle button with these two boxes. And you'll notice when I hover over it, it says restore down. It might be small for you to see on your screen, but it's right in between the minimize and the X. So we're going to do that, and what this is going to do is this is going to crunch it down to the last time I had this window open at anything less than 100%. So evidently the last time I had this window open, it was sized about like this. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and separate out our windows. Now as we're doing this, you'll notice that if you hover over the border of any of these windows, so if you hover over the right border, you'll get a little double-sided arrow, or the bottom. And if you click and hold on any of those when the double-sided arrow comes up, if you click and hold and then you drag your mouse, it's going to manipulate the size of the window. So I can make it wide, I can make it small, I can hover over the bottom and make it tall, or I can make it short. I really have a lot of flexibility for what I can do. Now, if you go up here to the top, where this little gray area is in the header of this window, and you click and hold, you can drag this window around. So that way you're not manipulating the size of it, but you are moving it around. And this is useful because then I can pull this over here onto the right-hand side, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have the Walmart page open here on the left, and then I'm gonna have the eBay open here on the right, so that both windows are open simultaneously. And again, I can drag that around just by clicking in this area on the window. That's what enables that to happen. So let's go ahead and let's do it based off of where we want Walmart. So Walmart we want on the left-hand side. This is just a preference thing. And then once I've got it tucked over here on the left, none of the window is going off the edge of the screen. It's just right up to the edge. Then I can come down here under the bottom border where this double-sided mouse comes up. I can drag that down so that it occupies 100% of the vertical space. And then this is taking up a little bit more than 100% of the window. So I'm going to click on this border on the left or on the right-hand side here. I'm going to click and drag that inward until it's just a little bit smaller. So you can have the windows overlap a little bit if you'd like. It's just a preference thing. And how much you can see on the screen is going to be dictated by how big your computer monitor is. For some of you, it may be worth it for you to go out to Walmart and pick up an extra and pick up a monitor for $100 and use that in the strategies just so you have a little bit more screen real estate. That's what I have here. I'm going to use one monitor just to demonstrate it to you. But now that we have this occupying one side of it, now we need to separate out this window. So here we have our eBay listing. And if we want to separate this tab out, all you have to do is click on the tab up at the top. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hold my mouse button down. That's why you see that little red circle showing up, is because it's showing that I haven't let go of my mouse button yet. And then as I click, I'm going to drag that down towards me by about an inch or two. And you'll notice that as I drag it towards me by an inch or two, it separates into its own window, and then I can drag it to wherever I want it to be. So if I want this over here on the right-hand side, I can just drag it to that right-hand side. I can tweak the windows, manipulate their sizes, and get them back. Now, if you accidentally get rid of a window, like the window just disappears, if you're using a Windows 10 machine like I am right now, if you come down here to the bottom, any instance of Windows you have open will show up in these little preview panels. And if you click on it, you can get that window back. It's just hiding down there at the bottom if you accidentally did minimize it. And so that can happen. But again, if that's not enough detail for you, you play with it a little bit, and you're still not comfortable with the process, just let me know, and I can send you over the training that talks about how to split your windows if you're one of my students. If you're not one of my students, then just contact whoever your coach is and ask them for that training. All right, now let's go ahead and start the listing process. So I don't actually want to list this duffel bag. I want to list this item. So I'm going to click to that tab. I'm going to leave the tab open where I have my price guide in it, because I may be using that as we move forward, or I could have a tab open where I've got the eBay calculator in it. But now we're going to go ahead and start the listing process. So in the search box right here, I'm just going to type in the keyword phrase of what I'm listing. So I'm just going to say that I'm going to do, I'm just going to type in jump starter. So you could put in the whole title if you wanted to, but you just don't have to. Now I do want to show you something here on this page. Once you go and type in a keyword phrase, you'll see an option here now which says listing template. You don't want to use a listing template here. This isn't going to be beneficial to what we're doing at this point in time. Now, if you ever make the window so big that your button gets pushed off the screen, you may need to adjust the screen width to get the button back that we're going to be clicking on. But at any rate, you can do that if you need to. So I just typed in jump starter. I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. Maybe I'll refresh this page. Okay, so I typed in jump starter and I hit enter. It gave me my drafts. eBay does save your item as drafts if you haven't finished the listing all the way. Now you're going to get these options that will say similar products in our catalog, and it might seem, if you found the exact same item, it might be tempting to select one of those items from the catalog, but please don't do it because it's going to have a major impact on the success of your listing. Because basically what it means is that you're going to be selling on the same page as everybody else who's offering that same item. And if they're offering it at a far smaller price than you are, then your sales will go out the window. And so what we want is we want our own real estate. We want our own window with our listing in it where we have a lot more control. So down here at the bottom, you may see one of two buttons. You may see a button that says continue without selecting a product. You may also see another option that says create a catalog item or something like that. We do not want to do a catalog item. That's the same problem as what we're discussing here. We want to make sure that we hit the option that says continue without selecting a product. Now what that's going to do is that's going to bring us into our listing page again. And then I can readjust my window size. So I get that double-sided arrow. I'm going to readjust that down. Now, if you are using a Mac computer, you still have the same options to minimize, restore, change window sizes. But on a Mac, there's just a link in the bottom corner where you can adjust the window size. You can still click on the top and reposition your windows. But most people I've seen that use Macs with regularity are somewhat comfortable with that and can do it. But if you need help with it, you can call us on our support line and we can give you a hand, or you can just do a Google search for how to manipulate window sizes Mac or something like that, or Apple computer. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy the title. So when we're copying a title, and we covered this a little bit in the last training, there are two ways that we can do it. First, we can just very carefully click at the end of the title and then drag to the beginning to highlight it. Or we can do it the other way around. We can start from the beginning and highlight to the end. But however we highlight, once it's highlighted, we need to right click on the highlighted area, and then we're going to hit the copy option. Now I've had students that will highlight something like that, and then they'll just right click anywhere on the page. So they'll right click down here, and as soon as they right click, the blue goes away because they're not right clicking on the blue area. Now, if you are on a Mac computer, you can go into your Apple settings in the upper left-hand corner, and you can change your preferences to enable a right click if you don't already have it enabled. But just know that's a stock option on just about every Apple machine that I've ever worked on. So anyway, so we're just going to highlight it. And once we've highlighted it, we right click and we hit copy. Now we can also use keyboard shortcuts. You probably saw that in here where it says CTRL+C. In the bottom left-hand corner of your keyboard, there's a button that says Control, CTRL. And if you hold down the Control button and then press the letter C at the same time, it will automatically copy any text that's highlighted on the window you have open. So that means that you can just go like this, highlight, Control C, and now that text is copied and we can paste it in. Or if you're more comfortable with highlighting it manually, you can highlight it like that, and then you can right click and hit copy. Or the third option, which works well for some people but not for others, is that you just do a triple click. A triple click is just clicking on the mouse 3 times rapidly right on the text you want to select. So if I just go boom, 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 it highlights all that text, and then if I hit Control C, I have now copied it. So what that means is that rather than carefully highlighting it, right-clicking, copy, I can just go boom, 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 Control C, and then I can click over to the title area, and I can paste in what I put in there by doing Control+V. Now, if you're on a Mac, it's going to be the Command key instead of the Control key that does the same action. But pretty much any of the keyboard shortcuts I'm going to do are the same on a Windows versus a Mac. The only difference is that on a Windows, it's a Control, and on a Mac, it's the Command button, the CMD button instead. All right, now once we've got it in there, you can also paste in this box just by right-clicking and hitting paste. So that's easy enough. But you just get the title in there the way you want it, and then you make sure you're going to use all 80 characters as given. Now, later on, we're going to talk to you about the pros and cons of keeping Stanley Fatmax in there for this type of a product. But for right now, I just want to show you the basic core strategy, so I won't get into those details at this moment. But I'm going to get rid of this and on the end of it, and then I'm going to add any additional keyword phrases that I think would be beneficial. Now, in order to do this, I want to use you can either do a regular eBay search. I like to use the title builder tool. So if you come back here to eMentor tools and you go to eBay tools and you go down to title builder quick tool, it's going to bring you to a page that's going to look like this. You click the get your item title button, and then you type in whatever keyword phrase you're going for. Now you want to put in just a few keyword phrases. You don't want to put in the full title. If I put in the full title as found here, it's going to struggle with coming up with ideas a lot of times. So let's pop this in, and it tells me there's not enough information to proceed with the title. But if I change this and I get rid of this and I just type in jump starter, so just 2 words, it will pull up those listings. And it tells us what keyword phrases we should be adding to this listing. So this says 700, 350 amp jump starter with 120 PSI compressor. So this obviously has a battery built into it. So if somebody typed in the keyword phrase battery jump starter, I would probably want my listing to show up for that. So I'm going to type in the word battery. And then from there, it looks like, I mean, this is a battery charger too. That's part of the nature of what this product is. So I would probably put in the word charger. So that way it says battery charger and jump starter. We've only got 4 characters left. You'd want to eliminate any keyword phrases from the title that people aren't going to look for. I don't see a lot of people going to eBay and typing in 350 amp battery charger or 700 amp battery charger or 120 PSI compressor. Now I see people typing in phrases like battery charger and jump starter with compressor or something like that. But these extra ones in here that aren't going to be searched for, I'm going to get rid of. Now, we don't want to do any punctuations, no spaces. Capital letters are just fine, but I want to get rid of all of these extra things that just aren't going to get typed into a regular search. So I do want to put in the keyword phrase car in case somebody types in the keyword phrase car jump starter. So jump starter bank. Okay, somebody could type in battery bank, jump starter, or something like that. So I want the phrase bank in there. I think the word portable might be good, so I'm going to put that in there in case somebody types in portable jump starter, because there are kinds that you plug in. And we're already back to using all of our characters in here. So we've now filled out our entire title. So if you remember from the last lesson, we want to highlight that, copy it, and then go down here to the description box, and we want to paste that right in there, maybe even bold it. Just something to set it aside, because remember, Google uses that as a part of their search query or as a part of their search results. Next, you don't want to do a subtitle. That's a waste of money. Again, it'll cost you $1.50, which is why we don't want to do it. I would recommend using this custom label so that you can keep track of these items in the future. Now, this custom label does not show up to the end user, and it also isn't indexed by eBay, and this is really important later on. But for right now, you want to put that custom label in as being like if it was coming from Amazon, you'd want to put in the Amazon ASIN, ASIN, it's just Amazon, the internal system for keeping track of these items. If it's coming from Walmart, you want to grab the Walmart number or whatever the item is. So let's get rid of that window. And let's come back here and let's see if we can find the item number on this listing. Okay, so it gives us the model number. That's probably good enough. If there was a Walmart number on it, we could add that in there as well, but this will make it easier to find in the future. And also, it makes it less likely that you'll mess up and accidentally order the wrong item and send it to the wrong customer. So put that in the custom label box, and that's not going to hurt you. Typically, you can just leave the category the same. We don't need to do anything with variations. With UPC, select does not apply. And under condition, select new. That's pretty straightforward. And then from there, we can go ahead and start working on adding images. Now with images, I've got a whole nother lesson where I focus exclusively on images. So I'm gonna kind of go through this quickly. If you have any issues with getting images in there, then contact your coach, contact me. I may also put some links at the bottom of this training to those webinars that talk about image management, and getting into a lot more detail, as well as the lesson on doing the screen splitting. So if you look below this lesson right now in our website, you may see 2 links to those pages or any other lessons I feel relevant to link to, just for your reference if you need them. So in terms of adding images, let's go ahead and work on it. So I do want you to be aware that on most categories within eBay, they require that your image be at least 400 pixels 450 pixels on at least one side, or sorry, scratch that, 500 pixels on at least one side. A lot of the Walmart images that we could be grabbing are going to be quite a bit smaller than that. Kind of a default image size on Walmart is 450 pixels by 450. Now, as time has gone on, Walmart's gotten more and more away from this because they've, on Amazon, every image on Amazon is over 1,000 pixels. It's one of Amazon's requirements for listing an item on their platform. So you will find few, if any, items that are smaller than that. Whereas with Walmart, there's still plenty of items that are 450 by 450, but they're fewer and fewer. Now, the reason I bring this up is because if you try to grab an image that's 450 by 450, you're going to get a message saying that you can't list the item because the image is too small. So what you want to look for is you want to look for items that you can already see are going to be large enough. Now, most of the time, if you see this little plus symbol showing up on the listing, that means that there is a far larger version of the image. And in order to access that larger version, all you have to do is click on the image and it will bring up the full size version of that image. Now, if you were to right click on this image right here and save that image onto your computer, it would save it as a web page, and that's not going to work. You'll notice it says save as type, web page complete. eBay can't parse that information. They're not going to be able to pull that into their site. So what you have to do first, always click on the image, get the biggest possible version of the image that you can see, and then you can right click and hit save image as on that image, and it will save it onto your computer. Now, another thing you can do at this point is you can also, like I showed in one of the last lessons, is you can copy the image address and you can import it that way. So if you don't want to save it onto your computer and then later upload it to eBay, that's one possible solution. But for most of you here initially, saving an image onto your computer may not be a bad idea. So let's go ahead and save one onto our computer. So I'm just going to save it onto my desktop. So I'm going to click desktop over here on the left. Up here at the top, it says this PC and desktop, so I know that it's going to show up just on my regular computer screen. And then I hit save, and that image is going to download. Now I can look at the next image, and I can download this. So if I wanted to add this image, right-click, save image as, same process. And then you just continue to do that for as many images as you feel necessary for that item. Now, you don't need to pull over all of the images. Just a couple is probably fine. We can always come back and add more to it as time goes on if an item does start to perform really well. But for now, let's just grab those three and leave it at that. So in order to add these images, we need to go ahead and add those photos using this button. So we're going to click Add Photos. And then from there, we can add multiple images at the same time just by holding down the Control button on your keyboard, the CTRL button, and then clicking on each of the images you want. Another way you can do it is you can just highlight all three images, and you can hit open, and that's going to upload all three images simultaneously. So that makes it really easy, and then you can just drag and drop these images to order them in the order that you would prefer. Now, all of these images, fortunately, are large enough. They're all over 450 by 450, but had we clicked on this image and it didn't give us a larger version of it, or we tried to upload it and then we got an error message, then that would indicate that we need to do some image manipulation or we need to find a new item to list. So a good rule of thumb, I think, is just find items that already have large images on them for the time being. And when you're listing items using this strategy, the first thing you do, grab the image, add the image into the listing, make sure that it works, and then if it works okay, then you can go ahead and add in the title and the description and everything else. Every once in a while, I have a student that doesn't want to edit images. They also are finding that an image they want to list is too small, but they've already created the title and the description and everything else. So they've already invested a bunch of time into the listing only to find out that they can't list it because the image isn't big enough, and then it's a frustrating experience. So if the first part of the process is that you try to grab items that already have large images and you just bail out on any items that don't have large images, that's going to make your life a lot easier, and it's going to speed up your listing process by quite a bit. Now, if you wanted to import from the web, let's import the last two images from the web just so that we can demonstrate that process as well. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on it. Now, also, another thing that I've had students do in the past is not only will they try to save this image, which is not the full-size version of the image, but they'll actually right-click on the little tiny thumbnail version of the image, and they'll save that and try to upload it. So they'll go, oh, okay, save image as. They'll save it onto their computer. They'll come here, they'll click Add Photos, and then they'll try to add that image in there. So here's the image that we just saved. Now, this is a tiny, tiny thumbnail version of the image. So when we hit open, you're going to notice a couple of things. First, it's going to give me this error. So there's that flag, photo quality issue, upload a high resolution photo that are at least 500 pixels on the longest side. If you're uploading a photo from your smartphone, select medium or large photo size options. But if we click on this, you'll notice that the image is tiny right here. And also, if you were to stretch this out, it would look super pixelated, and that isn't great. So just make sure that you're never right-clicking on the thumbnail version of the image. Make sure you're never clicking on the primary image. Make sure that you click on the image itself, you see it on a white background, and you do it. Now, this is another one of those things that you want to watch while you're doing it. So if you want to watch this training, watch what I'm showing you right now. Do it on your own computer. Make sure that you're not getting the error messages. Make sure that you're right-clicking and saving the right image. That'll make your life a lot easier rather than trying to watch this all in one fell swoop or one sitting. All right, now I want this image, but I don't want the tiny one. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to show you how you can import it directly. So if I right-click on this image, now that I'm looking at the full-size version of it, and I click copy image address. Now, take note, I'm using Google Chrome, and the reason it says copy image address instead of copy image URL or something like that is because I am using Chrome. If you're using Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer or Chrome or Safari, or sorry, not Chrome, or if you're using Safari or Firefox or one like it, then those right-click menu options may well be different. So in Chrome, the correct option is copy image address. And as soon as you click on that, it's going to copy that onto your computer. And then all you have to do is come here to where it says import from web. And then you can just right click and paste or control V to put that in there. And then once it's in there, you can click add another, or you can hit import. So let's say that we wanted to grab our next image. Let's say we wanted to grab this one. So I would hit right click, copy image address. Then I would click add another there, and then I would paste it in. And then I would click import, and now it's going to pull those items straight from the Walmart site without me ever having to save the image onto my computer. So that makes it a lot easier. These images are going to be big enough to meet our requirements, and then we can, of course, drag and drop them to position them however we see fit. Now, you can also do additional editing like cropping and rotating. And I'll get into a little bit of image management or image manipulation and editing in this lesson. I'm just not going to go into a ton of detail on it because I'll have a dedicated lesson that will focus more on that. All right, now once we are done with this, it says we recommend these item specifics. You can click add, and we'll add these for right now. In the future, we probably won't use those options as much, but feel free to set any additional ones that look to be promising. So for example, this item is an air compressor, so that's good. I'm not sure if it's a plugin. You could look that up. I'm not sure if it's reverse polarity protection. You could probably read that from the description. But if we're going to put it in the description anyway, just let the user find it that way. You could spend all day, every day, putting in this information, and it's only going to slow you down. So only put in what you feel like is actually going to bring additional visitors to your listing, because basically eBay treats these like extra keyword phrases. So if the word air compressor shows up here at the top, and it shows up in these item specifics, and it shows up in the description, you might rank a little bit better, but it's not worth it to the degree where you would spend 10 minutes adding these additional bits of information. You can leave out the warranty stuff. Even if Walmart has a warranty, we can leave all that pretty much off. Now, next, we need to grab our description. So we've got to scroll down to find our description. And so when it says about this item, that's all we need to grab. Now, there is a Prop 65 warning on here, and we'll talk about that pretty briefly. But first, let's grab our description. So first, we want to make sure that we're not grabbing any links that are going to link to the Walmart site. So this text right here says, see our disclaimer. We don't want to do that. We don't want to grab that part. So we're just going to highlight this portion of it. We'll leave the disclaimer off, and then we're going to hit enter a couple of times. So again, we're highlighting the text. If it's a single paragraph of text, you can grab it with a triple click, boom, boom, boom. But you right click and hit copy, or you just drag over the top of it. But remember, if you're going to right click on it, you have to right click on the blue stuff, or it's not going to work. So right click, copy, and then from there, control V to paste. We could break it up if we wanted to. And if you ever need to, you can also strip the formatting. The way you strip the formatting, and I'll show you this on the table, is if you do control, CTRL, plus shift, plus the letter V as in Victor, all three of those, then it will get rid of any fonts, it'll get rid of any tables, it'll get rid of any bold or italics or any links that show up in the text. So if you ever get a message from eBay saying, hey, there's a link in your text, you might want to do a Control-Shift-V to paste that stuff in there rather than anything else. So on this item, there doesn't look like anything it's damaging, so I'm just going to paste it in there direct. And then from there, we've got our Prop 65 warning, and we can grab that Prop 65 warning, highlight it, do Control-C to copy, and then we can pop it right into this box where it says California Prop 65 warning. And that's all we really have to do here is just put it right in there. So that said, none of the other 49 states have a problem with this. If you were to eat this item, you would probably get cancer. But for most people, it's going to be a non-issue. So this is a two-edged sword here, where you put in the Prop 65 warning to let customers know from California that they can order. Now, this is really important because Walmart will not ship this item to a California address. So if a customer from California comes in and tries to buy this item, you're going to have to cancel the order. So putting the Prop 65 warning in there can be beneficial because California customers will then stay away from buying this item. And if they do buy the item, you can cancel the order and say, hey, we told you we couldn't ship this thing to California, so it's on you. So you don't have to take responsibility for canceling that order as a seller. But the problem is that sellers, or purchasers, I should say, in the other 49 states might just not buy from you on this item because they see that Prop 65 warning and it freaks them out. So if you want to, you can choose, instead of doing a Prop 65 warning into this box, you can put a line in there which will say something to the effect of, we cannot ship this item to California addresses. Any orders placed from California will be canceled, but you don't get into the reason for why, so that we don't scare off our customers in the other 49 states. And so if you wanted to do that, you could just put it the next line down and just in all caps, this item cannot ship to the state of California due to California state laws. Any orders with a shipping address in California legally must, or actually I should say, any orders with the shipping address in California will be canceled. Okay, and that's it. So I don't need it to be this giant of a font. I could probably change that a little bit. If I click on the advanced editor here, I can change my font size. So let's kick it down to, let's say a font size of 10. Let's change the color to red so that anyone in California should be able to see it and not miss out on it. And then that way we're not losing sales in the other 49 states. It's just the California sales that we can't ship to anyway that this is taking care of. Now, next, we've got this little table with the brand, the model, the amps, the battery, and so on. So we want to highlight that. I'm going to copy it, Control-C. Then I'm going to hit enter a couple of times, and then I'm just going to paste it in the bottom, and that's going to put that table in there. Now, let's say that I didn't want the table in there, but I still wanted the information. If I do Control plus Shift plus V like Victor, then it's just going to put it in like this. Again, it strips out all the formatting, and then at that point, we can reformat based on what we want. So we can say, all right, I want this to be a colon, or I want to just reduce some of the spaces on here. So let's just do this. Or you can do it however you want. The key is that if you know how to remove the table, then you can decide how you want to do the formatting. The key here is that we don't want to spend a ton of time on this kind of stuff because it won't have a major impact on your sales. And so sure, you can do it. You could spend the rest of your life just perfecting a single listing. The name of the game, though, is we want to create an income. And if we want to create an income, we need to get to a point where we can knock out these items really quickly. So once we've got our description in there, then we set everything else. Now, all of the rest of what we're going to do is virtually the same as what we showed in the last training on how to list your first item from home. We're not going to schedule it because oftentimes that'll cost us money. We're going to leave the duration as, we're going to leave the format as fixed price, duration as good until canceled, and then our price, we need to use a calculator to figure out what our price is going to be on this item. So we can get this item for $44.98. So if we use our price guide and we say, okay, the Walmart price is basically $50. Let's make this a little bigger. So our Walmart price on this item is $50. We're going to get free shipping on it, so you don't have to worry about any additional costs there. So that means that our eBay price needs to be somewhere between $65 and $75. Let's make this a little bigger so we can see our profit. And if we price it at 65, we'd make a whopping $1.32 based on, again, probable tax based on a California shipping address. Now, this is kind of ironic because this is an item that can't ship to California, but there are other states that have similar tax rates to California. So again, what we want to do is we want to assume the worst case scenario so that anything better than that, we're going to make more money on. So we want to do somewhere typically between a 1.3 and a 1.5 markup. And so if it's a $50 item, a 1.3 markup would give you $1.32. A 1.5 markup would give you about a $10 profit. So if you go somewhere in the middle and say, hey, I'm going to price this item at, say, $70 flat, then I'll make about $6-7 on the order. And that's probably enough just to test the market, see if the market will bear this price. And if it does, then we'll add more to it. So we'll continue to increase the price like what we were talking about before. So on this item, we want to do about $70. Now, if you do a rounded 7.00, this item will not sell as well as it could because people think that $70 looks like a lot of money. But if you do 69, 97, 69.23, 69.95, users will look at this price and they'll say, oh, this battery jumper is $60. In fact, just the other day, my wife was looking at an item online and she said, hey, sweetie, we should buy this. It's only $120. So I looked at the item and sure enough, it was $129.95. Now I'm not that guy, so I didn't say to my wife, no, honey, it's $130. I didn't do that. Because for every time I could do that, she could do it to me 100 times. But you want to try to do a price that has a little bit of an appeal. So do a $69.97, $69.95, $69.90 rather than a rounded number. In fact, try to stay away from rounded numbers altogether. So don't price an item at $67. Do it at $67.77, $67.95, something like that. And that will increase your conversion rate by just a little bit. Now, you want to keep your quantity at 1. The reason the quantity at 1 is so important is because this counts against your limit. So if you put this item as a quantity of 100, it's not going to occupy $70 on your account. It's going to occupy $7,000 on your account. And that's bad because if one item takes up $7,000 worth of space, then you don't have a lot of space to list anything else. Now, once an item sells, because not all these items that we're going to list here using the strategy are going to sell with any kind of consistency. So once you identify an item that is selling with regularity, then what you do is you edit the quantity on this and you change it to a quantity of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. If it's selling really aggressively, you could set the quantity at like 7 or 10 or 15 or 20. You basically just want to try to keep that inventory level at what's going to keep you in stock for the next few days. So if you find that an item is selling for you 3 times a day on average, then you might want to set the quantity at 10. But you don't want to do that initially just because you end up eating up your entire limits. So always, the first time you list an item, set the quantity at 1. And if it sells, it'll go into your unsold section. We can relist it in about 2 seconds. And when we relist it, we'll set it at a quantity of 2. And then if it sells again, we can edit the listing so that it goes because when it sells at a quantity of 2, that means that there's only 1 left in stock. And the next time it sells, it'll come down off of eBay. So once you have 2 listed on the quantity and it sells 1 time, then you're just going to edit the listing and change the quantity back up to 2 again, so that way the next time it sells, it doesn't come off eBay. And the reason this is so important later on is because as you start to get items that are selling again and again, there will be multiple people that will be interested in a single item. One buyer will come in and buy the item, and then the other buyer will be left high and dry because they decided to save it for later so that they could show it to their wife. And then little Susie Q's birthday got a little bit closer, and that's what they were going to buy the battery jump starter for. And so as a result, they come back to look at your listing, and it's gone. It's no longer there. So set your quantity at 1 day 1. Don't do anything higher than that. But if it does sell, come back and change it to a quantity of 2 or 3, and then edit it each time you need to after the item sells. Okay, excellent. Now, PayPal settings should all be good. Make sure you have that box checked that says require immediate payment with buy it now. If that box is not checked, you will experience many, many headaches in using the dropship model. So please make sure that require immediate payment with buy now is selected. Next, on the return options, you can do a 30-day or a 14-day return policy. My recommendation is do a 60-day return policy. Most big box retailers like Amazon and Walmart already have a 90 or more day return policy. I had an item that I just bought from Home Depot 8 months ago, and I took it into Home Depot and they were more than happy to return it, and I could have returned it online. Most retailers have found that it's more profitable to have a generous return policy just because there's so many customers that would consider buying this item from you, but they see that you have a really stringent return policy, and so they decide they don't want to buy it from you, and they're going to buy it from someone else instead. But do the return shipping to be paid by buyer, so that there's also an incentive to prevent the buyer from returning the item if they decide that they don't want it, because what we don't want to get is people that are buying prom dresses a week before prom and then returning it after prom is over, right? Those are deeply problematic situations that we want to avoid. And having the buyer pay the return shipping means that you've got some skin in the game because you're going to issue a refund, but they also have skin in the game because they're going to have to pay return shipping on it. And then you just leave it at that. Now, if you are in Canada selling in the US, you do want to make sure you have international returns accepted because they'll count the US as an international area. So you just do the same thing, 60 days. The buyer pays return shipping. But if you're in the US selling to the US, or you're in Canada selling only to Canada, then you don't need to worry about that. And I'm in the US selling to the US, so I'm going to leave that as is. Next, on the shipping details, make sure flat is selected. If you select calculated, then it requires you to put in the dimensions on the item and the weight of the item, and it makes it take a lot longer to create a listing. So make sure that flat is selected. On shipping services, do economy shipping 1 to 10 days, just like we did in the first listing. We want to under promise and over deliver. We can't predict for sure when Walmart's going to ship out this item. And so we want to give ourselves a nice big window, especially on these first few orders you're going to be fulfilling on. You're figuring it out. It might take you a little bit longer than it will in the future. And so you want to give yourself as much time as possible to fulfill. And so 10 business days is going to give you that, plus 3 business days handling time, because that's what we're going to specify for handling time. Anyway, plus weekends, or sorry, when you add in weekends, that gives you like 16, 17 days to process and get the item to the customer's doorstep. And then that way, people that need this item for a week out aren't going to order from you because you can't get it to them in that kind of a time frame. Now, because we specified flat, same cost to all buyers, it means that we don't need to put any of the dimensions down in here. Now, if anybody missed it, in order to do free shipping on the item, you tick this box over here on the right-hand side. We definitely want to do free shipping because eBay is going to rank your items better in search if you offer that free shipping item. And you can do a 2-day business handling time or a 3-day. I'm fine with that. And then later on, when you get some experience, if you want to do a 1-day, I'm okay with that, but just not right out of the gates. We want to give ourselves as much wiggle room to learn this process and become comfortable with it before we start giving ourselves super strict deadlines. All right, so we can leave the package weight and dimensions out. We can leave the regular weight out. That's all included as it pertains to our listings. And then our excluded shipping locations automatically populate, because when we went into site preferences in the avoiding scammers lesson, we showed you how to exclude all of these locations: Alaska, Hawaii, US protectorates, and so on. And so just make sure that that is what's showing up here. And then from there, on the item location, you're going to want to change that. Now, by default, it should fill it in with your own billing address. What you want to do is wipe out the zip code, leave the item location as United States. Now, if you're in Canada and you're selling items in the US from the US Walmart site, then you're still going to use United States as the item location. You're going to leave the zip code box blank, and in the city and state, you're just going to say location varies, or item location varies, or warehouse location varies, or shipping location varies, just whatever you feel like doing. And then from there, once you've typed in location varies, you don't need to put anything else in there. You just scroll down to the bottom and you hit list item. And that's the entire listing process. That's really all you have to do. Now, you can get to a point where you can list items incredibly quickly using this strategy. And I want to show you how you can do that. Now, you're not seeing this, but on my phone, I'm going to have a timer pulled up. And I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for myself on how fast it takes me to create a listing like this. because students will tell me, Davin, it takes me so long to create this listing. Well, it doesn't need to. Now, that said, I've listed a fair amount of items, so I've gotten to a point where I'm pretty efficient at that process, but I want to show you just how fast you can edit those listings or create those listings and get them out there. So, and then there, of course, you see my listing for my charger showing up in there. Now, this was a dummy item I had listed before, so I'm just going to get rid of these. I'm just going to hit edit, action, and then end to get rid of those items, and then click end listings. So now I ended all those. You don't need to end your listing. You can leave it out there unless you really want to end it. But okay, so we're done ending that item. So now I'm going to show you how to list an item, but I'm going to show you how to do it quite a bit faster. We're going to focus on speed this time around. So I'm not going to spend any time explaining what I'm doing. I'm just going to get the create listing page up, and then I'm going to just kind of rapidly create the listing as quick as I know how. So let's go back. Now remember, when you're choosing your next item, don't put a lot of thought into this. Just grab what comes up. Try to get a diversity of products. So list a lamp, list a battery charger, list a clock, list a speaker. Again, please don't spend any more than about 10 seconds choosing your next item. Anything beyond 10 seconds is going to be a waste of time. Now, I'm still going to share with you some additional details for points that you want to avoid and things you want to be careful of. And so we're not done teaching you new stuff in this lesson, but right now I just want to show you how to do this listing a little bit faster. So let's say that we want to list, let's say that we want to do a different price range. Let's say that we want to do something closer to the $95 to $100 price point. So in the price range here, I'll just change that really quick, and then I'll hit go. Now I would say you want to try to favor lower end items more than higher end items, because again, people will buy them with a lot less thought, and that's good for our kind of a strategy where we're not trying to have the lowest price. Now that said, if you are saying to me at this point, Davin, I really want to have the lowest price on all my items, then just be prepared to buy in bulk, because the only way to get the absolute cheapest price on an item is to buy 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 units, house the items yourself, and then package them and ship them out yourself. So if you want to become successful doing drop shipping, you first have to be comfortable with the idea of not having the cheapest price on the market in order to make this work. So, all right, let's go ahead and get this item listed. Oh, I did price 48 to 100. Okay, that would do it. Let's say 95 to 100. And let's list an item in that range. So let's say that we want to list, here we go. We'll do this KitchenAid food processor. So I'm going to get that open in this window, and then I'm going to have this open. Now, this is an item that comes in with variations. So what you want to do is you want to pick one of the color variations. We don't want to do a variation on the listing on eBay because, again, it eats into your limits. So if you list the black one and it actually gets a lot of traffic and a lot of sales, then come back and create another listing for the red one. But don't do it as a variation within the listing, because all that leads to is an item that doesn't convert at a very high rate, because a user comes in, searches for a red one, they see your listing for a black one, and they don't click into it because they don't realize there's going to be a drop-down box there with the colors in it. But if you do it as separate listings, it will make things quite a bit easier. All right, so I think I'm ready to go. Let's go ahead and create this listing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start, and then I'll report to you on how fast I actually was able to go. Okay, first I'm going to grab my title, triple click, paste, hit enter. Brings me to this page, continue without selecting a product. While I'm at it, I'm just going to go ahead and save some images. Save image, save, click to the next one, save, click to the next one. Okay, it looks like it's pretty much the same image 3 times. That's great. Okay, so we only need one of those really. We're going to put in our custom label. We'll grab that, paste it in there. Our category selected, create variation. We don't want to do that, so does not apply. New, add photos. We only need one of these. Well, let's just add them both just for fun. Okay, we'll add both of those photos in there. Those are added. We'll add KitchenAid. We'll add the color black on there. We'll leave the rest of this out. Now we're just going to grab our description. Triple click, paste. Okay, this is a Prop 65 item. So we'd put in that little sentence in there. Now, normally I'd have this saved on another document, but I'm not going to add that for the moment just because I don't have it readily available. And then from there, we want to fix our title up, KitchenAid 7-cup food processor. So I'm going to search this in Title Builder. We'll hit search. Okay, so food processor, 7-cup, KitchenAid, matte black. So we'll add the word system, slicer, adjustable. Get rid of this item. And then I'm going to put in the word 7 too, in case somebody types in 7 spelled out cup food processor. We'll get rid of that comma because we don't need that in there, and then we'll copy that, scroll down, put it in the first line of our description, bold it. Then from there, we'll grab this table here at the bottom for the performance and capacity and all that fun stuff. And then we'll place that at the very bottom of our listing. And I missed the word P on performance, so we could add that in there. And actually, I probably don't want all of these extra bits of information because this is a full table comparing it to a bunch of different items that I can click through. So I actually just want to grab the specifications. So let's grab the specifications and then do that. Okay, looks like we got a whole bunch of images that we can take as a part of that. So let's just grab that whole thing. All right, and then let's wipe out this part of it, delete, and then paste that in there. We'll get rid of the interactive product tour because that's not necessary. All the rest of our descriptions are in there. Fixed price, I'm gonna set my buy it now price at $139.88 because this item was $100. We'll leave all the rest of the conditions the exact same. Economy shipping, and the first couple of times you do this, you want to just double check to make sure everything looks good. But we just hit list item. Now that took me 3 minutes and 30 seconds to create that listing, even while I was explaining it. Once you get to a point where you're in a nice groove, you've listed a whole bunch of items in a row, you get to a point where you just become unstoppable. You just get faster and faster at this process, just the more comfortable you get with it. And there wasn't a whole lot that we had to do in there. Now, that was pretty quick and sloppy, but the point of the matter is it does not take a lot of time to create new listings on eBay. So now that we've covered that, let's talk about a few of the types of items you want to make sure that you're avoiding when you're listing these items from Walmart. So when you're grabbing items from the Walmart site, just note that not everything is going to give you free shipping. And what I mean by that is when you look at items that are excessively large, like a basketball standard or possibly a swimming pool that weighs 700 pounds or maybe a swing set, a lot of those items ship freight. So you have your standard carriers like USPS, UPS, and FedEx that will usually ship items that weigh up to about 70 pounds and that are not excessively large. But once you get to a point where you're shipping out items that are really big, like say you're selling a hot tub, then no regular carriers can ship that, and so they have to ship freight. Now, the problem you run into with freight items is that there's a freight surcharge that Walmart charges on any items that have to ship freight. But the bigger problem is that the freight company oftentimes is not going to be willing to deliver that item to the customer's doorstep. So what ends up happening is a customer buys the item, the freight company gets the customer's phone number, they coordinate a time to come and drop off the item, and then when they come to drop it off, they may only do a curbside delivery, meaning that Grandma Ethel just bought a $4,000 hot tub, and the freight company that brought it on a truck will bring it as far as the curb, and that's it. They won't haul it into the user's backyard. They won't haul the product into the person's house. They won't even bring it up to the customer's doorstep. They'll just leave it right out on the curb, and it's the user's or the purchaser's responsibility for getting that item in the house. Now, a lot of times you can bribe that guy, and you can say, hey, I'll give you $30 if you put it in my backyard. But again, there's a lot of extra complexity when it comes to freight items. And so at this point, I would recommend everybody avoid freight items. Now, Walmart doesn't make it abundantly clear. They don't make it abundantly clear which items are going to ship freight. And so if you've got an item that's pretty big and you're not sure if it's going to be a freight item, it's a good idea to add the item to cart and see if you end up getting a freight surcharge. So let's find an item that's nice and big. So in order to do this, maybe let's look at a higher price point. Let's look at like the 400 to the 600 range for price. Okay, so here we see basketball standard. That might be a freight item. That's pretty big. This 28-inch griddle, depending on how much it weighs, might be a freight item. This power wheels might be a freight item. This swing set might be. I would say probably the most likely to be a freight item would probably be this one, Backyard Discovery wooden swing set. So I'm going to click on this one, and let's see if we get charged freight. So the point at which you're going to know where you have freight is it may show it right here. So this one has a $99 freight delivery. So you can still do these items, but you're not going to price this based on $379. You're going to price it based on the $379 plus the $99. So you would mark the item up based on a $479 price point. Now, sometimes it won't even show it to you at this point. And so what you would do is you would add the item to cart, and that's going to put the item into your cart. And then the delivery box would show any kind of a freight surcharge that's added in here. Now, further complexity that comes from this is that when you are selling an item on eBay, by default, eBay does not require that the customer give you, as a seller, their phone number. But freight companies will almost always require a phone number. And if you want, you could put in your own phone number so that the freight company calls you, and then you can coordinate with the actual customer by calling them. But you would need to have some kind of open lines of communication with them so that you can actually fulfill on the order, get the item to the customer without excess frustration. So if you see a freight surcharge, first instinct should be to run. If you really, really want to do the item, just make sure you add in the extra delivery cost. And just note that you're going to probably have some extra issues with communication. It's just freight companies are a lot less organized than your big carriers like USPS. Walmart works with tons of different freight companies all over the US in order to fulfill on these types of orders, and every single one operates in a slightly different way. They are far less automated, far less simple. So there's an item that has a freight charge on it. Let's take a look at a couple of other large items. Because, I mean, really, if you would price the item based on $379, you could very easily break even or lose money on a transaction because you forgot about that extra $100 fee. So again, we'll look at the basketball standard, see if there's a freight item on this. Okay, so it says on this item that it's free delivery, but out of an abundance of caution, if I hit add to cart, it tells me that the delivery is $99. But it just said on the previous page it didn't. Why is that happening? Well, the reason, it's pretty simple. We already have the first item in our shopping cart above and beyond the basketball standard. So you'll notice it says 2 items in cart. And so it's doing the freight surcharge from the swing set, and then the basketball stand doesn't have it. So that you don't get a false positive on freight, just make sure that you have removed any item from the cart that you're not actually looking at. And so once I hit remove, then I can go ahead and go to checkout, and it will tell me that the delivery on this item would be free. So that's where we see free delivery on that item. So this item, for whatever reason, isn't big enough to ship freight, so we could safely do it. Just make sure that you price appropriately. That's the thing I'm going to warn you against again and again. Be careful with freight, and if you're going to do it, make sure you price enough to compensate. And also, because you're going to spend a little bit of extra effort on it, I would probably tack on an extra $20 to $30 on your price, because you're going to have to coordinate with the customer to figure out shipping. So you want to make a little bit more if you're going to put in that extra effort, and that's a good way that we can do that. All right, so that's what we'll talk about with regards to freight items, but really, I've seen many, many strange items sell, and the item that sells first for you is not going to be the item you thought was going to sell for you. Too often, the first item that sells for you is something boring and mundane, like a toilet seat cover. And you say to yourself, why are people shopping for toilet seat covers on eBay? And the answer is that they need one. And eBay just happens to be the marketplace that they prefer to shop on. And so they buy a toilet seat from you. A lot of times the items that sell are not the sexy or attractive items. They're just the boring, mundane stuff that you would buy normally if you wandered into a Walmart. Well, shopping online is really going to be no different. And then from there, you see that the estimated tax and fees on this item, Walmart is going to charge you sales tax. That's why we compensate for it when we're pricing the item, both using the price guide and the dropship calculator. So use both of those to your heart's content and just make sure that you're pricing the item appropriately. Go for enough of a markup that you're making a profit on the sale. If you just go for a straight up 1.3 markup on everything, you're going to break even on a lot of your sales, and that's not going to be fun. So do a 1.4 markup, and then as items sell, increase it to a 1.45, a 1.5, a 1.6, a 1.7, and really the sky's the limit. It's just whatever, again, the market will bear. All right, so now that we talked about freight, and we've kind of walked you through that part of the process, now let's talk about image manipulation for those of you that are struggling with getting an image that works. So the first challenge is finding an item that doesn't have an image that's big enough. That's probably going to be our hardest part. So let's click on the swing set. Let's see how big this image is. Okay, we got the plus symbol in the upper left, so that means that we already have an image that's going to be big enough, so we don't need that one. Let's click on this kayak. That's another item that's probably shipping freight. Okay, and before it's going to show me the price, it wants me to select a color. So let's click on the blue one. Wow, this one does free freight delivery on that one. So if you see free freight, remember, freight is still a pain in the neck. Cool that they're offering free freight on this item, but know that you'll still need the customer's phone number so you can coordinate with the shipping company, and it may not be worth it to do this item. And then also come back and watch those kind of items to make sure that that free shipping on freight doesn't go away at any point in the process. Okay, so this has a plus symbol too, so that means that the image is already big enough. We just have to find something with a small image. All right, I'm going to pause it while I find one. Give me just a moment. Okay, I was able to find an item that doesn't have an image that's big enough, and so it's a Serta Chelsea convertible sofa. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click through the colors and see if there is one of these versions that actually does have a big enough image. And if there was one, then I would just probably list that color and leave it at that. But whereas all of these items, you'll notice there's no plus symbol in the upper left-hand corner. When I click on the image, nothing really happens. It doesn't give me an exploded version of the image. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there. And then we've got these tiny images down here at the bottom, which are different cuts. Now notice that when I look at the other views, these ones actually are big enough. So this image, there's that plus symbol there with the magnifying glass. So that means that if I click on that, it's going to give me the image preview. But it's just that primary image in there that's going to give me the issue. So if I wanted to list this item and I wanted to use that first image, then I'm going to have to do a little bit of image manipulation or image editing in order to fix this. So let's create a listing for this item as a part of the demonstration. So we'll have 3 items, 3 dropship items listed. And then I'm going to do the black version of the couch just because. And then let's go ahead and create our listing. So we'll try to go somewhat fast on this one because we want to get most of the listing done. All right, so here's my listing. And I'm going to skip on doing a solid title. I'm just going to leave it as this. I am going to say this item is not multiple colors, it's black, right? It does come in multiple colors, but we would do separate listings for each of those. So I would want to put in additional keyword phrases like faux leather or possibly leather, depending on what the material is, or whatever fabric this is made out of. I might put in the word chrome for the chrome legs, but I would make sure that I use all 80 characters in this. Just because I'm not finishing this title doesn't mean that you shouldn't always when you're creating your listings. So let's get down. So we've got our category, UPC, does not apply, condition, new, and then our images. So this image is not big enough. So in order to get an image that is big enough, what we're going to do is we're first going to save this onto our computer. So I'm going to right click and hit save image as, and that's going to save the 450 by 450 version. And just for fun, let's add that image that's too small to our listing. And we should get a message. Yep, photo quality issue. I need it to be 500. But again, this biggest image was 450 by 450. So let's get rid of that. And now let's jump over to the eMentor tool site. And in the eMentor tool site, we're going to go to eBay Tools, and we're going to go down to Resize Your Image. When you click on that, it's going to launch a new tab with the image resizer in it. And then all we have to do is add our image and then start resizing. So I'm going to click Choose File right here. I'm going to select my image. I'm going to click Open. And then from there, this tool is really super easy to use. You just click zoom in a couple of times. Boom, boom. and then you adjust the corners on this to meet the new dimensions of the image. So you just pull them out as far as you can. And then from there, you'll see what the actual width and size are. So you'll see that the width is 515 and the height is 515. So that's above the 500 pixel image requirement. Here, I'll make this a little bit bigger. So you'll see that's above the 500 pixel requirement. So we could just stop right there. So typically just hitting zoom in 2 times will fix it. Now you can also make the image way bigger. So you might say to yourself, well, if 500 is a good image size, what if I make it 2,000 pixels tall or 2,000 pixels wide so that there's a lot more detail in it? Well, then you could just hit zoom in a whole bunch more times, but I'm going to show you the problem with that. Is that when you take an image that's kind of small to begin with and you scale it out to that degree, it starts making it look pretty pixely. And it starts to kind of ruin the quality of the image. So that when you add it to your listing, the users who look at it just say to themselves, I'm not going to buy this thing. Look at how poor quality that image is. Now, it may not be showing how poor quality this image is, just because we're doing this over a webinar and you may not see the level of detail we need. But simply put, just once it's north of 500 pixels, then just stop zooming in. So here we go, 506, 506, that's going to be just fine. And then you just click resize. So I'm going to restart this process over again, just to show you how simple this can be. So we add the file, zoom in, drag this corner out, drag that corner out. Oh, we're only at 390 for the width. I think it's probably because I'm in here fiddling with this and we didn't start with default values. So let's try one more time. We're going to add the image. Okay, so it's saying width is 289, height is 289. If I drag out the corners, it puts it up to 341. That's interesting. It could be this. Oh, now I've got it set to the right dimensions. Okay, so zoom in, boom, boom. Let's do a third time just for good measure. Drag out, drag out. I think I just messed it up with how often I was doing this. All right, let me X out this window and let's start from scratch. So eBay tools, resize your image, choose file, select the 450 by 450 version. Okay, and then zoom in, 1, 2, 1, 2, and now we're at 515 by 515, so we're big enough. So we hit resize, then we hit save, and that's going to save it onto my computer. Now I can add that photo in here, and because I've only edited the image a very little bit, the image is going to be big enough. Now, I can't find this image because it evidently is not saving in my desktop. You'll notice that there's the original image that's 450 by 450, but I don't see the one that's larger than that. So I need to come here to the bottom left-hand corner, and I'm going to click on this little arrow, and I'm going to click Show in Folder, and that's going to tell me where on my computer this is located. So it looks like this saved to my Downloads folder. So if I go to Users, Davin, Downloads, then I should be able to find my image. Now, I can click and drag that over to my desktop just by clicking and dropping right there. But if I want to do it the good old-fashioned way, then I'm going to come here. I'm going to click Add Photos, and then from there I would follow the prompts where I would go when C, or well, was it data? Ah, shoot, I need to remember. All right, let's go back. So where did this save? Show in Folder, this PC, Win7, Users, Davin, Downloads. So this PC, Win7, Users, Davin, Downloads. Okay, there's my picture. Okay, great. So you can change your default save location on your computer using your Chrome settings if you want to do that, but I'm just going to go ahead and add that image in there. And then for my other 2 images for this item, I'm just going to hit copy the image location, because remember, these 2 images were big enough. So we can grab that one. So let's click on this. Right click, copy image address, paste it in, and then do the process again on the next image that I want to grab. So here's the image of it flat, copy image, oops, I just saved it. So copy image address, add another, paste it in, and then click through any additional images that you wanted to add. Okay, this one might be a good one. copy image address just to give the dimensions to the end user. And we'll leave it at that, and we'll hit import. So now our primary image stays the same. It's 515 by 515. And now we can finish the rest of the listing, just doing everything else that we've showed you before. So now you know the very basics of how to create these listings and how to put in the description and even the Prop 65 warning and everything else like that. So your assignment now is to go ahead and list 5 items following what's taught. If you need more details on image manipulation, look for the link at the bottom of this lesson that will have a link to show you how to do that. If you need help with doing splitting screens and showing you how to do that, then go ahead and click on that link. But let's go through a quick checklist on the things you need to make sure you remember on every single one of these listings, because as they say, the devil is in the details. That's one of my favorite things to say. But so in the to-do list for this listing, and if you're one of my students, I've also emailed this list to you in your list of assignments. But number one, make sure that you're using the advanced listing tool or the business tool. Make sure you are not using the quick listing tool. That's number one. Number two, make sure you're using at least 75 out of the 80 allotted characters in your title. 3, copy your title and paste it into the first line of your description for increased exposure in search listings. Make sure you select buy it now. Make sure that you have or best offer turned off. Or best offer is a tremendous way to waste time and money. And so when you get down to where it allows you to do a or best offer, make sure that box is unchecked. Do not do best offer. It is a complete waste. Next, make sure you do a quantity of 1 on the item and only increase it to a quantity of 2 or higher if the item has actually sold for you in the future. Next, you want to do good until canceled listings on the item. So if you select fixed price, it's automatically going to select good until canceled. Do require immediate payment on all items. When a customer is paying through PayPal, that's this little checkbox right here, require immediate payment with buy it now. Next, do economy shipping 1 to 10 days. Do make sure you select flat shipping and make sure you offer free shipping. And if there is a shipping price in addition to what you're going to charge, make sure you roll that into your cost of your item so you don't lose money on sales. Next, do 2 to 3 day handling time on your item so you have plenty of time to get the item out the door. Next, have your shipping exclusions set up to not to sell to anyone outside of the lower 48 states, including international buyers. And make sure that you add up all of your eBay fees on your listing, the cost of the item, plus potential tax based on the worst case scenario of shipping to California, which has a sales tax rate of about 10%. Again, taxes based on the shipping address, not the billing address. Also make sure you're adding in the 10% for your eBay fees and your PayPal fees. And if you use the eBay fees calculator that I created, that should do the majority of the work for you on those listings. So please use that calculator and also my spreadsheet from the assignment that we've discussed today to help keep track of those items. Next, do a 60-day money-back return where the buyer pays return shipping on the item. And then from there, really the most important thing is set a timer for yourself on every single one of these listings. Set a timer and really focus on knocking out those items quickly. Try to get to a point where you can create a good listing in 2 to 3 minutes. Initially, if you're like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, that's okay. Just continue to repeat the process. Ask yourself, what is taking you so long when you're creating those listings? And note that as you get better at creating your eBay titles and adding keyword phrases in there, you'll need to use tools like the title builder tool or let's say like a regular eBay search, because you could do the same thing on an eBay search where you could go and search this item on eBay and see what other sellers are listing the item with what keyword phrases are. But once you have followed those assignments and you've got your first items listed, then at that point, you'll want to contact your coach, let him review your listings, and then at that point, your coach will be able to get you over the next set of assignments. Now, if you're one of my students, a lot of you may be asking, well, how do I fulfill on one of these dropship orders? How do I get the item actually shipped out to my customer? How do I hide the price on the packing slip and other factors like that? That's going to be covered in the next lesson. In this same email where I sent you the training for this assignment, for this lesson, right below it, it'll say the next assignment is when you actually get a sale, watch that training, and you'll click on the link in my email, you'll watch the training, follow the instructions to the letter, and then you'll know how to fulfill on it. Now that said, watching that lesson right now is a complete waste of time because you don't actually have a sell the process, and so the information is going to go in one ear and out the other. So don't bother watching the training now. Again, it's a complete waste. When you actually have a sale, remember that the instructions on how to fulfill on that order are located in this email, in the assignments, and just clicking on that link, if you're one of my students, will do that. Now, if your coach has a little bit of a different process, they will tell you what to do to get the item shipped to the customer. Maybe they'll tell you, or maybe they'll send you a link in a lesson in an email, or they'll ask you to call in on the support line. Follow whatever protocol your coach has told you to do. This is just specifically advice for my students. Read that in the email. Now that said, you don't need to wait until you have a sale before you move on to the next set of assignments. Absolutely, unequivocally not. So just get your first 5 items listed, and then we're going to move into the next set of assignments where we're going to talk about cutting down on cross promotions, keeping track of prices, automating your editing process on your listings and other factors like that while we wait for the sale. And then as soon as you get that sale, you're going to circle back to this set of assignments again and then watch the training at that point. So thank you for attending the lesson today. I know this is a long one. This is typically the longest lesson I ever record. And so if you've made it all the way through, you now know how to create a dropship listing on eBay without having to nail down a supplier first. It really helps us simplify the process and helps us to identify which items are selling really well. So use this information to your advantage. And then as soon as we start seeing items that are selling really consistently, we'll show you how to branch out and nail down wholesale dropshippers that can provide us with these items instead of Walmart. But if you're my student, use Walmart, follow the instructions that I've shown you to the letter. And last, and maybe most importantly, is spend no more than a maximum of 10 to 15 seconds identifying what the next item is that you're going to list. If you tell me in our next conversation together that it takes you 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes to decide on a listing because you're going into eBay and you're looking up items and you're typing this in and that in and you're looking at average selling price, I'm going to tell you that you're wasting your time because unequivocally you are. It's not worth doing that. So set a timer for 10 seconds. Pick your next item within that time period, and then set another timer as you start to list these items and focus on speed. And just, you don't need to get to a point where you create a listing in 2 to 3 minutes right away, but we want to make each listing that you do go a little bit faster on average. And if you do that, eventually, whether it's after 10 listings or 50 listings, you're going to get to a point where you can knock out these items really quickly and you're going to be unstoppable. And there's going to be nothing standing in your way between you and being able to make a considerable income using this strategy. So thanks for attending. Please feel free to let us know if you have any additional questions, but go ahead and apply these strategies. Get your first 5 items listed, and if you're one of my students, notify me to let me know via email, and I'll get you over the next set of assignments the moment I've had the chance to review your listings, and I'll get you into what's next. Thanks for attending, and we look forward to having you on for the next one.